this last time because he was logged in on something else, right?
Yeah, I could get him in on his desktop, but he took this home last night and he's not been tasked since he took it home.
Is he
I
on
said
the
to him,
Wi-Fi?
where is your old iPad?
Where?
It's in the building.
And I think
And I said
that's,
that to him, get that thing out of the building.
and that's the problem too. Is that thing also? I think that's what blocks his account.
It is. I said, get it out of the building. And he won't tell me where it is or I would take
Probably
it.
in his desk drawer.
I would take it. I'll go through it.
They both work iPads. There's one's personal one.
Well, when we get new ones, we don't.
Yeah.
I took my old one home. That way I can monitor my work email at home and not drag my new one around. But he needs to get that old one out there.
Yeah.
Because what happened actually, Steve, was, I got locked out one night when I was working late. You know why? Because I was using the spare iPad to play Spotify Me, and it has a different password. So I've turned it off.
Okay, is that the right order? Have public input up first? Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, you give everyone a chance. So
And he goes,
well,
yes.
you can only give so many chances to people.
But I would actually say to you,
Harken back to the good old days.
hello, Easter Bunny.
John, was the same thing last night.
You need to get your old iPad out of the building.
I don't know where it is. IT has it. So my old iPad, I turned it back in when I got the new one.
Should have been white.
Well, it wouldn't be on. It would be off. We had it. The battery would have gone dead.
I don't know why that you're the only one that happens this. Anyway, we're ready. Was Ross here during hospital? Did he come in? Did Ross come in during the hospital, Joe? I never saw Ross here during hospital. Did he come in?
Yeah.
I was going to say I can look them.
Good afternoon, everyone, again, and we're just about to start our regular board meeting. I would like to acknowledge again that we are holding this meeting on the traditional territory of Coast Salish First Nations. So I would like to call the regular board meeting to order, and I know, Mr. Berry, you have a couple of changes to the agenda.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Are you making it shorter?
Yes.
Was that a motion? Okay, Mr. Berry.
Madam Chair, Mr. Chair, we have 3 items, with your approval, to delete item CR3. Those are the recommendations from the Regional Services Committee meeting that we haven't finished. So there's no reason
Fair
for it
enough.
to be there.
Nothing against the chair of that committee.
Also deleting bylaw 4189, that's item B3. Twin Cedar Sewer System Service Boundary Extension, we've been requested to hold back on that. There's going to be some changes, it sounds like. And also delete UB1, that's an unfinished business item. Procedurally, that shouldn't be there at all because it's unfinished business of business that you never had in the first place. It was a response to a question raised during a question period, and the procedure for that is to get back to the person who asked the questions.
And Shannon is hovering, so there's something.
And, thank you, Mr. Chair, we will also delete the closed session regional item because we have not dealt with that.
Okay.
And that would be closed session CR3. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. With those changes, can I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Moved by Director Davis, seconded by Director Stone. Any question? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, minutes. M1, motion to adopt if there are no errors. Moved by Director Clement, seconded by Director Walker. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Public input period. We have an opportunity for someone to speak to an item on the agenda. No one coming forward. Thank you. No delegations. Report of the chairperson, just very quickly. I attended an event at the Duncan Community Lodge, formerly known as the Moose Lodge, as a mayor and also as your chair for a group called PAWS regarding prevention of cruelty to animals, and I had an opportunity to talk to our staff so that I knew that at the regional district level, the current animal control bylaws were being re-examined and with consideration of additions. The older bylaws don't generally, whether North Cowichan or elsewhere, don't generally make any reference to how to handle situations where there's inhumane treatment of pets or animals in general. And the SPCA has done some good work on developing model bylaws, and Mr. Blackmore was able to assure me that they were looking at those materials. So that, of course, will be an EASC consideration. But I wanted to let you know that it was an amazing crowd that came out. There was a very strong concern, and they overflowed the Duncan Community Lodge, and it was an interesting discussion there. One of the things that I said to them that modernizing a bylaw is not going to necessarily stop someone from harming an animal. However, we do know from the SPCA that it might speed up an intervention, make it more feasible to actually act, because there are things that have to be done before you. There are provincial and federal legislation in place that can deal with these issues, but there's no, for instance, option for a municipal ticket to be issued. So the thinking was that a modernization of our bylaws could help the efficiency with which we, or the SPCA, deals with these situations. So I wanted to make you aware of that, Director Jackson.
Yes, when the City of Duncan updated its animal control bylaw in the last couple of years, we worked very closely with the SPCA, Coastal Animal Control, and also other animal groups, and I think that our bylaw is actually one of the best. So if anybody, before it comes before the Electoral Area Services Committee, wants to check it out, it is online, and we'd be delighted to share it with you.
And just to confirm that, the SPCA were very complimentary about the bylaw. Okay, we can move on then to correspondence, Mr. Berry.
From Lauren Sheffer, Chair of the Cowichan Lake Community Forest Cooperative, and looking for a letter of support. There's a recommendation that a letter of support be provided to the Cowichan Lake Community Forest Cooperative and its partner Pacheedaht First Nation, legally cited as Qualit Forest Partnership, for its application to the Ministry of Forest Lands and Natural Resource Operations and Rural Development for a community forest agreement.
So that's moved by Director Morrison, seconded by Director Kuhn. Any question on this? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We can move to committee and commission reports, and we have under CR1 report and recommendations of the special Regional Services Committee meeting March 14th, and that would be Director Yoni DiNardo.
So the recommendation, one, the funding of $5,000.
Excuse me just for a moment, I have to leave because I did the Mill Bay Marine Rescue website.
Okay.
So would I just leave for,
We won't do
I
that
think
one.
we
Can we
will put that one aside,
okay,
And I'll do
deal with
for
the rest, and then we'll allow you to leave for that one.
okay, thank you.
Number two, start all over again. The funding of $5,000 for regional grant and aid for the Cowichan Valley Naturalist Society be approved. 3, the funding of $1,500 for a regional grant and aid for the Cowichan Beekeepers Association be approved. 4, the funding of $2,500 regional grant and aid for Ladysmith Family and Friends Society be approved. The funding of $5,000 for the Literacy Now Cowichan Society be approved. The funding of $10,000 for the Ladysmith Festival of Lights Society be approved. The funding of $10,000 for Cowichan Intercultural Society be approved. Number 8, the funding of $40,000 for region of the Cowichan Green Community be approved. 9, the funding of $30,000 for Providence Farm be approved. 10, the funding of 1,000 for Handmade Hug Society be approved. 11, 10,000, the Cowichan Housing Association be approved. And 12, funding of 15,000 for the Clement Center be approved. And 13, funding of 15,000 for the Hayhit Laylam Society be approved.
Thank you. Seconded by Director Day. Director Clement.
Mr. Chair, just bear with me. I don't want to refer all these back, but number 8 is really problematic because I would like to discuss that. But if that gets changed and more money is freed up, it may very well open opportunities for other people who were on the short list, who didn't make the short list. So I would seek some guidance on, should I be referring just number 8 or pulling it for
Yeah,
now?
I think we should just pull it and
Okay,
deal
pull
with the
number 8 then.
rest. I think that's the best way to proceed. Yes, Director Davis?
Don't we have to pull number 13 as well?
Absolutely, yes. I'd forgotten. It's a conflict of interest for myself. That's the company I work for.
Oh, okay.
Which one is number, I don't have a number 13 on this current list.
Yes,
the
there's
Hayhit Laylam.
13. Hayhit Laylam Society.
Okay, so it's number.
Is there any other ones that we need to pull while we're at it? Okay, I'm not seeing any other ones. Director Morrison?
Not that I want to pull, but I'd like to comment on it.
I'm sorry?
I'd like to comment, if we're pulling one, I'd like to comment on the process,
Okay.
if I may. Well, if we pull one to discuss one, and I gather we're looking at pulling to be able to secure, if it's reduced, to secure opportunities for others to be considered, I think it really colors the whole discussion on all of these that are being recommended.
Right.
And so I don't see how we can just pull one and then we'll have directors putting forward their special interest one that they want to pursue. And so if we're going to have this discussion, I think we have to have a more wholesome discussion. I'm not saying the whole discussion all over again, but we're going to have to consider
So,
this in a different light.
sure, and I appreciate your comments. Just to be very clear, 2 we have to pull because there are people who have conflict of interest. So it's really just one, I believe, number 8, that is in a different category. So we talked about this before the meeting, and we felt if people were looking for wholesale changes, that we should refer it back to committee. You know, we have allocated budget, so it's not, the timing of our budget approval and so on has no impact on that. But I'll leave it to the board. If it's just the one item, do we want to deal with it now, or do we want to refer? Director Walker.
I must confess that we went through it the other day at committee, and we went through it, and we used a process that was designed to help us. I'm not sure in the end it helped us, and I had a feeling that there were others besides myself that felt we didn't do the whole thing justice. And I'd like to make a motion that we refer it back for another go at it.
Seconded by Director Morrison. On the motion to refer, Director
Everything.
Marsh and then Director Clement.
Okay, I'm not sure. Obviously, we must be allowed to do this. One of the recipients made a public announcement of what they had gotten at our last council meeting. I'm thinking that what if people, maybe they shouldn't go ahead until it gets
Yeah.
to this board, but
So just to be clear, those decisions made at committee are not,
our recommendations.
they're recommendations to the board. So somebody may have jumped the gun, but that would
That would
actually
be
be their error, not
I see.
ours.
And they shouldn't have jumped the gun.
Okay. I still don't think I support this, even though there's things here I I think the process was a learning thing. I thought some of it was very helpful, and maybe it didn't all work completely for everybody, but in the end, this is where we got, and I don't really myself have an appetite to go back and do it all over again, but I'll leave it at that and see where everyone else is.
Thank you, Director Clement, then Director Yanni DiNardo.
So in regards to Couch and Green Communities, number 8, 40,000, I was in support of that, and I will, like Mr. Walker, say that the process had some hiccups, and there was definitely some friction, and if, like Ian said, if we open one up, I think that we could have a better discussion with cooler heads that may see us fund some of the smaller organizations that $1,000 makes a really big difference to them as opposed to these larger grants to larger organizations, and to give them a chance. And so I think discussing them all, I think our last year's one went really well, where we just had a discussion about where we could meet each other, and I think that we could help each other out a lot. And then specific to that one, it dawned on me as I drove home in my $800 van that I've put $1,000 of parts and labor in myself, that $15,000 is quite generous, the initial amount that was proposed. And so that would free up hypothetically $25,000, which there's, I think, 6 organizations that could get funded at the lower cost ones. So I think having that discussion again would be really beneficial for all of our communities.
Thank you. Director Yanni DiNardo.
So I just want to be clear, the motion is not just to pull this 40,000 and have a discussion on it, is to redo the whole thing again.
It's to refer this to Regional Services for a discussion of the entire
So
grant
there's no
name.
way that we could just bring back, I mean, that one was just pulled, you just,
This is the motion that's on the floor. Director Acton, then Director Stone.
Thank you. I guess I'm probably going to offend some people, but this whole grant aid thing, we've just talked about it so much, and it's $150,000. Personally, I want to be done with it. And to pull out one thing here, like we just talked about $1 million direct to Clermont, and you weren't here for that. That would have been nice to had that discussion there about that one. So, and that was a very close tie, or very close, sorry. Vote, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Director Stone.
Oh, I just have to speak to, if we're going to pull one, we have to send the whole thing back, because you can't deal with one in isolation. I think we've had this conversation around whether we apply a grant and aid application to come in late, and whether we open it up for all. We said, no, we're not going to open it up, so we didn't. So it's either we open it up and revisit the entire issue, because it's only in fairness that you bring all of those, that same lens that we're talking about with the Couch and Green community to the entire process, and if it is to go back, it should be in its entirety.
Thank you. Director Jackson.
I'll be voting against this. It took me, I don't know, and everybody here at this table, probably 3 or 4 hours to read through every single one of those grants and aid, and then we were here battling it out for 2 hours in that tortured process, and I'm not willing to do it again.
Okay, thank you. I would like to call the question then, and this is on a motion to refer this to the next Regional Services. All those in favor and opposed? The motion is defeated. You need the...
So, Mr. Chair, because there's so many, it's clearly defeated, just if we can get the names of those who were in favor, because then we can write the minutes.
Director Walker, Director Morrison, Director Clement, Director Kuhn.
Okay, so everybody else, of course, was opposed. That's what will be in the minutes, so it was defeated.
Okay, so that brings us back to the motion from which we have excluded number 1, number 8, and number 13 for various reasons.
Number 8?
not number 8. Number 8 was pulled.
Yeah. Okay, so on the remainder, they've been moved by Director Yanni DiNardo, and I believe we had a seconder, or do we
I
need?
didn't have a second.
Okay, seconded by Director Nicholson, rather emphatically. Don't hurt him when you are,
Oh, wow. Allison,
That
you've
was a
never
smart
raised your
move,
hand
Brian.
so high.
it's difficult enough to get a good CAO, so don't do any damage there. Okay, can I call the question? All in favor? Opposed? Director Morrison opposed, Director Kuhn opposed, the motion carries. And we'll start with number 1.
Okay, that,
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Director Jackson.
Mr. Chair,
will lead the
Director
room.
Jackson should, just for the record, because we are
just
streaming,
give us a-
the reason
Because I have
Sorry,
done business with them.
with the.
You have to come to microphone.
We want it on the record.
I'm in conflict because I've done work with them.
Thank you. Just give Director Jackson a moment to leave. Okay, are there any questions or comments on this one? I'll call the question then. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Just wait for, oh, she's here.
Can we do
That was quick.
13 and then go back to 8?
Yes, certainly.
So I'd like to declare conflict. The Hayhit Leyland Society is an office that I work at.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can read it. So,
Thank
thank you. I was daydreaming about what I was going to say about the next one. That funding of $15,000 for a regional grant in aid for the House of Friendship Society be approved.
Seconded by Director Clement. Any question on this? All in favor? Opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Okay, that's done, so we can move back to number 8. And, yes,
The Regional Grant and Aid Couch and Green Community be approved.
do I have a seconder? Seconded by Director Stone. Comments? Yes, Director Clement.
I would like to amend that for 15,000.
Down to 15,000. Do I have a seconder for that? Seeing no seconder, that fails. Director Walker?
I'll move 20,000. It was primarily for a vehicle, and I think 20,000 could be a good enough vehicle in today's prices, just for a van to deliver stuff.
Okay. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Director Clement. Any discussion? Yes, Director Clement.
I'd just like to echo what I said before, and that is that you're right, $20,000 for a van is more than reasonable, and that $20,000 difference would make a lot of difference to organizations such as the girls volleyball or other groups that applied. That small amount of money makes a really big difference.
Thank you. Director Stone.
So we've already been clear that we're not revisiting the grants and aid, so cutting this budget now doesn't mean that the volleyball people get money. So let's be clear here that the board just voted to send this regional grant and aid discussion back to regional services down. So that discussion isn't happening. So we can cut the budget for Couch and Green Community, but to what end? I won't be supporting this resolution.
Thank you. Director Morrison.
This is part of the challenges that we made the decision at committee for all the reasons that we debated. And it's process that I'm concerned about more than anything else. And I understand the desire of directors around the table to see if funds can be freed up to fund those other ones. But that's not what process we're following. This is just a cut. And I don't know whether we're going to end up with a series of, you know, now that we're not at our 150 so-called maximum, that other opportunities to fund others, but I don't see how we can have that discussion now.
Okay, thank you. Director Marsh.
Okay. Trying not to be too confused. I'm willing to support this. I know that Green Community was willing to accept $15,000. They were quite surprised that they got the 40, considering all the other options on. I do know that because I spoke to the executive director after the meeting. Well, then, that's what she told me.
Okay, please
Anyway,
keep the conversation
I
to
would
the board.
I could support this if, but then I would afterwards want to move that the $20 in savings would go to.
20,000, yeah.
20,000 would go to the Hayat Liam So I don't know how, and then other people might want to do another thing, so I don't know if that's possible, or if we're not going to do that, then I won't support this. If it's just going to sit there and not go anywhere.
We can't predict the future, so I
What are our
suggest,
options, Mr. Chair?
I suggest you just deal with this item separately, and whatever flows from it, we don't know yet.
So at this table, we could deal with that 20,000 here without referring it back another time. To the
Once
regional
again, I'm
service.
not going to say what's going to
Okay.
happen.
Okay.
Director
deal with it
Kuhn.
here.
It's not a big problem, we just leave it in the kitty. Why do we, just because we have a ceiling of 150, doesn't mean we desperately have to reach that ceiling. I mean, this seems so ridiculous, makes me laugh. So if we want to spend 20,000 less on this one item, so let's do it. And we leave the 20,000 in there.
Okay, thank you, Director Day.
I can't support this for exactly the same reasons as Director Stone. If we're going to revisit this one, let's go back and revisit them all. And I don't care for that process either. So, you know what? Maybe there's excess funds set aside from the 300 that we may have taxed for. I don't know. Are we still taxing for 300? Is there still?
Yeah, the 150,000 is in a strategic portion set aside.
You know, if we want to revisit it, I'd be willing to revisit it at another meeting to talk about the other ones that didn't make the list. Might be a way forward too. Anyways.
Thank you. Director Acton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just going to say this now so that if I'm sitting in this chair next year, people don't look at me sideways, but I am going to find out if there's a way for Shawnigan to not be a part of this function for the grant and aid. This is, the ROI on $150,000 is not worth the time on this. Like, it's just not functioning well for me.
Well, I think you're always going to be part of the regional grant and aid program, but it's just my initial thought. Okay, I'd like to call the question, and the motion was that the funding for Cowichan Green Community be reduced to $20,000. So all those in favor? And opposed? So the motion is defeated. Could those who are in favor please put up their hands again so we can, Director Yanni DiNardo, Walker, Clement, and Kuhn.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So back to the main motion, which was to confirm the funding of $40,000. It's on the floor. All those in favor and opposed? We have Directors Yanni DiNardo, Walker, Clement, and Kuhn opposed. The motion carries. Okay, thank you for that. We can move on to CR2 and Director Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Electoral Area Services Committee reports and recommends from our March 21st meeting, one, that Grant and Aid Electoral Area B, Shawnigan Lake, in the amount of $500 be provided to Francis Kelsey Secondary School Dry Grad Committee in support of 2018 Dry Grad Celebration. Two, Grant and Aid Electoral Area E, Cowichan Station, Satellite Glenora, in the amount of $500 be provided to the Red Willow Women's Society to support acquisition of space in Duncan for child protection services offered to Aboriginal women in the community. Three, that a Grant and Aid Electoral Area F, Cowichan Lake South Scots Falls, in the amount of $500 be provided to Lake Cowichan School for a bursary to a graduating Area F student pursuing post-secondary education. Four, that Grant and Aid Electoral Area F, again, in the amount of $550 be provided to Lake Days Celebration Society to support and sponsor the annual pancake breakfast during Lake Days, June 3rd to 10th. Five, that a Grant and Aid Electoral Area G, Saltaire Gulf Islands, in the amount of $1,000 be provided to Shemana Secondary School for two bursaries. One, Saltaire Community, $500. Two, Thetis Island, CBRD, $500. Six, that a Grant and Aid Electoral Area G, Saltaire Gulf Islands, in the amount of $500 provided to the Nanaimo Ladysmith Schools Foundation to support a Ladysmith Secondary School bursary program for a student residing in Area G. Seven, that a 2-year extension, 2018 to 2020, for the Jack Fleetwood Trail license agreement with Island Timberlands LP be executed. 8, one, that the 2018 budget for function 469, Cowichan Station Association Area E, be amended to 1, increase grant to organization by $15,000, and 2, increase transfer from gas tax reserve by $15,000. 2, that function 469 Cowichan Station Association Area E 2018 budget amendment be authorized to proceed prior to adoption of the 2018 budget amendment. 9, that a financial donation contribution equivalent to the cost of materials and labor for a 20 by 20 picnic shelter be accepted from Laketown Ranch, with the donation applied to the electoral area I community parks for capital improvement investment at a park site in the community. And I move those items.
Thank you. Seconded by Director Kuhn. Any question on these? Director Walker.
Not being part of the earlier discussions on number 9, is there a ballpark figure for this?
Director Morrison, can you answer that?
I defer to the director for the area.
Director Kuhn?
Like 28,000.
Pardon?
28,000.
Your microphone.
28,000 is the ballpark.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? I'll call the question then. All in favor? And opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Director Morrison.
Following items for electoral area directors only. Number 10-1, that development permit application number 04-B-17 DP/VAR, Lot 4 Arc Road, be approved. 2, that zoning amendment, or zoning bylaw number 985, section 11.4 sub B sub 2 be varied from 10 meters to 12.95 meters, and that section 11.4 sub B sub 5 be varied to remove the screening requirements along the eastern boundary due to an existing right-of-way, and remove the requirements along the remaining boundaries, as the majority of the boundaries contain protected riparian areas. And 3, that the general manager of land use services be authorized to permit minor revisions. Move those items.
Thank you. Seconded by Director Acton. Any question? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
That concludes my report.
Thank you, Director Morrison. We can move on to CR4, Director Dory, Community Safety Advisory Commission. No, CR3 is not complete yet, so we're talking CR4.
Okay.
2 recommendations.
Okay, there's 2 recommendations. Both of them are receiving funds from Island Health. Both of them are receiving funds from Island Health. And the funding is running out in June, so they want to get the funding reinstated. So here's the 2 recommendations. Your Community Safety Advisory Commission reports and recommends as follows: that a letter of support for the continuation of the Sharps Pickup Program be sent to Island Health, Cowichan Mental Health Association, and School District 69.
79, yeah.
79. And number 2, that a letter of support for the continuation of the Duncan Overdose Prevention Site be sent to Island Health, Cowichan Mental Health Association, School District 79, and the Honorable Judy Darcy, Ministry of Mental Health and Addictions. The Sharps Pickup Program, I think they've collected.
We don't get into discussion yet, and I kind of got an indication, I think, that perhaps Director Jackson wanted to remove the second item.
Yes, that would be super.
So it could be dealt with separately. So we'll deal with the first item, and I'll look for a seconder. Seconded by Director Nicholson. So any discussion on the letter of support for the Sharps Pickup Program? Director Dory?
Mr. Chair, yeah. They had a report that there was 10,000 needles that were picked up at different sites for the Sharps program, and they want to continue the funding after June. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no hands up, I'll call the question. All those in favor and opposed, None opposed, motion carries. And if you could read number 2 again, please.
Read number 2 again. That a letter of support for the continuation of the Duncan Overdose Prevention Site be sent to Island Health, Cowichan Mental Health Association, School District 79, and the Honorable Judy Darcy, Ministry of Mental Health and Addictions.
Do I have a seconder for that? Seconded by Director Nicholson, Director Jackson, and then Director Walker.
Thank you very much. In general, I am in favor of an overdose prevention site. Do not get me wrong, but it may have come to your attention that where they chose to put it against the wishes of both the police, the neighbors, the council of the city of Duncan, they put it right in a residential neighborhood, and now that neighborhood is under serious siege from drug dealers, sex workers, users hanging around the facility and wandering into the neighborhoods and into the park. A lot of people aren't using that park anymore. I don't know how I can say how terrible it is for those people down there. And my former neighbors, because I have moved out of the area. But is there any way that we can send a letter of support, but also ask them to please seriously evaluate the placement? Is there a way that that could be done?
Okay. I'd ask you to consider making an amendment.
Okay. Thank you. I would like to make an amendment to send the letter of support, but asking them to reconsider the wisdom of the placement of the present overdose prevention site.
Okay, thank you. Now we're speaking to the amendment. Director Walker, if you have something to say to the amendment?
No, not on the amendment, but I was going to speak on.
Okay, so I'm going to have to wait your turn then. Director Stone?
Not being intimately involved, I just followed the conversations in the paper and on social media. Many of the comments, actually, I think were Director Jackson's comments on some of the news stories at the time. My impression was that they went through a broad consultation around this site, and the issue was debated hotly at the time. And I don't know if it's our place to then try and encourage them to reopen that debate. As we know, anytime we try and bridge the gap between those who are in need with services, neighborhoods do often come out and push back, sometimes with good reason, but I just can't support us trying to re-prescribe a process that's already been gone through to find that site a location. And I think that the municipality that it's within would be a more appropriate place to have that discussion rather than us in a letter of support telling them to reconsider their location.
Thank you. Director Dory, I should have apologized. I should have given you first kick at this can.
Yeah, in talking to some of the people there, the biggest complaint is the loitering that happens in the area. The police haven't had any reports of or any increase in files being opened due to misbehavior in that area. Apparently, the site was a methadone clinic before, which is different, and nobody even knew it was there. That people just went and visited, got the shot, and were gone. They didn't loiter like the people here are. So it is a perception of really bad stuff going on, but that's part of it. And the other thing that was mentioned was that they are looking into moving the site to a different location. So they're actively investigating that. So if that helps, I don't know, but just the same, most people realize you have to have sites like this, but we don't always agree where it should be.
Thank you for that. Director Marsh?
Yes, I don't support asking them to consider moving it because as Director Dory just said, they are going to consider everything in the evaluation. They've had an online survey. I'm not sure if all of you got it. I thought I forwarded it. But I'll just refer to some notes that I took at the meeting that Director Dory's speaking about. CSAC had this report by Dave Street, and he said that well, in September, when it opened, there were 28 overall uses. Now, that could be one person more than one time. They're not talking about individual uses, they're talking about overall, well, individual uses, but not individual users. It went up to 49 in October, 73 in November, 42 in December, 472 in January, and 1,067 individual uses of the site in February. So there's steady increase to the client flow. In surveying them and chatting with them, the staff, they do refer them to detox services. They've had in that period of time 30 overdoses at the site, and they managed to prevent death in all of those cases. So the site that was chosen was designed to handle 100 to 200 uses. And so you can see, we're double that already by January. So that's part of the loitering problem. People are waiting to get in because it's only open so many hours of the day. There were 2 stations, there's now 3. So I imagine one of the evaluations we'll see is that a good location? And if it is, can we make more stations and have more staff? That's something they'll be looking at. But the business community and the neighbors, according to this report, they were giving good positive feedback. And so I don't mean to argue with you, but that's what we were reported at. So, well, in many cases it was positive, and the fears hadn't come to pass, apparently, according to this report. I'm just reporting what was reported to a committee of this. So.
Director Jackson, I'll give you a chance to speak after Director Mark.
It's just distracting, so, because and that there's a working relationship between the players. And the RCMP, Chris Bear was at the meeting, and he said there is no measurable increase in crime in that neighborhood. He did actually say what they appreciated was those helping with those 30 overdoses saved a lot of RCMP and emergency responder time. As you might know already, when the RCMP comes to a call and they have to take someone to emerge, they have to stay until that person is stabilized. And many times someone in an opioid overdose has to have many shots of Narcan in order before that's cleared their system. So, and the thing that was really interesting was they cannot really take a survey of the people and say for sure. Like the people remain anonymous, but a significant part of the increase in December and January were people who anecdotally told them they lived in Crofton, Chemainus, Mill Bay, and Lake Cowichan, and they were on their way to or home from work, and they appreciated the site and how discreet the location was. So that targeted population, because we weren't just targeting the homeless people, we were targeting everyone. And if you'll remember when we first had the report, pretty well across the province, 85% of people who are dying in their homes or dying in their cars. And some of those people, it's the first time anyone in their family knew they were even using drugs. So I count this a huge success that by January, we're starting to have folks that are gainfully employed in the district and are suffering with addiction using the site. So I did do the survey, and I'm sure many other people have done it, and I have confidence that Island Health will choose the best location with all the factors that they have to factor in.
Okay, thank you. Director Jackson.
I don't know who wrote that report, but thank you for giving it to us. We've lost 6 businesses, and the neighbors, a lot of the neighbors are considering moving. There is not, we lost the pet store right off the top. Nugget Glass will be moving. The Crab Shack will probably be moving. Royal Dar is closing. Lost a lawyer on 4th. So whoever wrote that is completely in ignorance of the real situation on the ground. I'm not saying that we asked them in my amendment to move it. I'm just saying would they look very seriously at the wisdom of the placement in a residential area. The reason I think why the people don't bother reporting anything is because when something disappears out of your garage, there's no point calling the police, it's gone. And by the time the police get there, the guy's long gone. So people just aren't bothering to report it. They probably should, but they aren't. So I'm not specifying that we should ask them to move it, but to just examine the wisdom of their choice is all.
Thank you. Seeing no more hands up, the motion is regarding the amendment language, which Mr. Barry is going to read out.
That the motion be amended to include wording that the agency there reconsider the wisdom of the placement of the current Duncan overdose site.
Okay, and I'm going to call the question. All those in favor and opposed? So the motion is, well, we better count.
Okay, let's
So those, yeah, we can count the opposed. We have Director Nicholson, Director Acton, Director Davis, Director Morrison, Director Clement, Director Marsh, Director Dory, and Director Lefebvre.
Eight opposed, so it's defeated.
Okay, and so we can move back to the original motion. Director Walker?
Yeah, the motion got amended before I could speak to it. So on the main motion, where I had difficulty with this wasn't anything to do with the overdose prevention site. Where I had trouble was the regional district is going to say whether they are in favor of something, going to support it or not support. And in this case, it's to support for something that is occurring in Duncan. And I thought, well, now, if the regional district, without consulting North Cowichan and said, without consulting the mayor and council of North Cowichan and said, we support something, I would kind of wonder about this. So I thought, you know, I'm not sure if there was something going on in Ladysmith that they were dealing with, or Lake Cowichan, or North Cowichan, or Duncan, to suddenly have the regional district support something without consulting it. So did the regional district consult the mayor and council in Duncan prior to coming up with this recommendation? It's the principle of the regional district stepping in and saying, we're going to support something.
Yeah, so this is a recommendation from the Safety Advisory Commission.
I'm questioning, and so they sit on it, yes, and they make a recommendation to us. And I have trouble with the recommendation, is that we're asking the regional district to support something that's happening in another jurisdiction. And so where does this start and where does it end? And for that reason, I won't be supporting it. If this said, after consulting with the particular local government, then I could support this. But without asking the mayor and council of Duncan, what do you think of us sending a letter of support? For that reason, I can't, because it could be for anything. I mean, could be something in Chemainus, could be something in Crofton or Maple Bay or something in North Cowichan. And the regional district just up and supports or not supports it. That bothers me. So for that reason, I'm going to vote no on this until I see what the stance of the mayor and council in Duncan is. Just because we have one representative of the regional district or of Duncan here, I'm not sure that cuts it with me. I'd just like to know officially what their council thinks of it before the regional district says yes or no.
Thank you. Director Yoni DiNardo.
Going to say, being the chair of the CSAC for many years, that this is a regional commission, so there is input from all the communities, and so I don't see any problem with this at all. It's coming through the CVRD, but it's a regional commission, mostly regional, I say.
Thank you. Director Dory?
Thank you. The recommendation is basically to support the funding. It doesn't matter where it is, that the service is necessary and they support the funding of it. The funding is it may be terminated in June, so they need money to continue doing what they're doing.
Thank you. Director Marsh?
Director, I just will add that Director Dory is correct. It is not about the location, it's about the funding. And I appreciated what Director Yanni Darnardo said, because the Safety Commission is part of the regional district. Director Jackson sits there and was in the room when this recommendation was made, and still that body of people from different local levels of government and other community organizations asked you to support their recommendation as a commission under you, that you send a letter of support for the continuation. So just like any table, there's majority and minorities, but that's what this committee is asking you to back up, and you've asked them to look at safety. And having had the report, it include the RCMP and the EMTs, and that's their assessment that they would like you to add support, that you think this is a good thing for the region.
Thank you. Director Walker?
Okay. As I read this motion, it says, letter of support for the continuation of the site. If the motion had have said, a letter to continue the funding, I'd have gone along with it.
Well, could we make a friendly amendment to take out the word the?
Just a second, Director Marsh.
I think I have the floor. Maybe I'm reading something wrong here, but if I had to draft a letter based on this motion, it would say something to the effect that the regional district supports the continuation of the Duncan Overdose Prevention site. If the motion had have said a letter to continue, a request to continue the funding, I'd have taken it, I'd have been in favor of that one.
Okay. Thank you. Director Marsh?
I'm wondering if we could just take out the words, the word Duncan, basically, and say that a letter of support for the continuation of an overdose prevention site in Cowichan be sent to Island Health. Because
So I would suggest you propose that as an amendment.
I propose that as an amendment.
And I will seek a seconder, seconded by Director Nicholson. Please, you can speak to it now if you need to.
Just the CSAC members are aware, as are we all, that Island Health is going to decide where they put it. It doesn't matter necessarily if the city or North Cowichan is against it. If they deem that that's the correct site, they've been given the right to open it where they want to. So I think the intent of the committee was that we're telling you as the board, we're in favor of continuing an overdose prevention site for our community. And so I don't think there'd be a problem with that amendment.
Thank you. Can I call the question on the amendment? All those in favor and opposed? We have none opposed. The amendment is carried. Now the original motion as amended. I'll call the question. All in favor and opposed? Director Kuhn opposed. The motion carries. Okay, thank you for that. That was well done, I think. Okay, which gets us to staff reports, SR1. Mr. Berry.
Yes, Mr. Chair, from the General Manager, Community Services regarding the 55-plus BC Games bid, and there's two recommendations. That the invitation referred from the municipality of North Cowichan to the CVRD board to submit a bid to host the 2020, 2021, or 2022 55-plus BC Games be denied. And number two, that the Regional Sport Tourism Select Committee guideline to consider bid submissions every 4 to 6 years to host multi-sport games in the Cowichan region be confirmed.
Thank you, and that's been moved by Director Davis, seconded by Director Day. Any question on this? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Just one little comment. At some point I saw reference to North Cowichan recommending that the CVRD undertake this. North Cowichan didn't recommend that at all. North Cowichan just recognized that if any such bid was going to happen, it would be a regional bid, not a North Cowichan bid, so they just sent it to this table for your consideration, which you have done. Okay, we can move, sorry, Director Davis?
I was just wondering who was on this select committee. Was this before my time on the board? Okay.
Mr. Elzinga, wait, we haven't even turned to you yet.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. The Regional Recreation Select Committee was formed in 2014, had a member of the 5 recreation commissions in the region, a member from the Economic Development Commission who also represented Cowichan tribes, and 2 members of the board, Ruth Hartman and Jerry Giles at the time.
Thank you. Okay, we can move down to bylaws, Mr.
Bylaws.
Baird.
First bylaw, 4179, Regional Parkland Dedication for Adoption.
Moved by Director Yanni DiNardo, seconded by Director Nicholson. Any question? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Bylaw 4188, 5-year financial plan amendment bylaw be adopted.
Moved by Director Clement, seconded by Director Yanni DiNardo. Any question? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
4190, Cowichan Bay Sewer System Service Amendment, first 3 readings.
Moved by Director Yanni DiNardo, seconded by Director Morrison. Any question? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
4200, Honeymoon Bay Fire Protection Service, a generator, 15,000 expenditure.
Moved by Director Morrison, seconded by Director Clement. Any question? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
That was for the first 3 readings, and now 4200 for adoption.
Moved by Director Morrison, seconded by Director Clement. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
That's it for the bylaws.
Thank you. So, and our unfinished business was removed, so I assume we can...
Mr. Chair?
Oh,
Can
Director
I
Morrison?
just, I don't think you caught it, but I'd like to be recorded as opposed to the 5-year financial plan adoption.
Yes. No, I missed it, so thank you for that.
Okay.
You got that, Mr. Berry? Okay, we can move down, and we have no new business, so we can move to question period. Here we go. Mr. Evans. Seems like it's been a while. I missed a meeting, but I bet you didn't.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. I saw some of the meeting this morning, but some of it just disappeared. Mr. Chair, on the regional grant and aids, it seems that year after year, there always seems to be problems and disharmony within the board over the regional grant and aid. I wonder if we could revisit the committee that we did have studying that and come up with some better criteria for dividing up our public's money.
Thank you. I think that's an excellent question. And if I go through back my history here of 15 years at the board, I think every board dreamed of having criteria that would simplify things to the extent that they were easy choices to make. I think that, I don't know a board that didn't want that. But the truth is, no matter how much we study it and work on it, there are still tough decisions to be made. So, certainly the Grant and Aid Select Committee could have more discussion, could do more work on it. Personally, I believe it still comes down to difficult decisions. I don't think, and I've seen this at North Cowichan, I've seen it here, I just don't think it works that the criteria can actually be that sophisticated that it sorts it out for you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, on the the drop-in, not drop-in center, but it is the funding for the center.
The House of Friendship?
Pardon me?
House of Friendship Center?
No, it is to.
The overdose prevention
yes,
site?
the overdose prevention center. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I just forgot that. But is there not special zoning need to be had to put a center like that into a neighborhood? Because I don't think there's anyone in here would like to have one of those centers beside their home and beside their children.
Right. We are a child of the province, and I believe this is a case wherein they are able to make decisions that supersede our zoning.
Wow.
So, and I've heard this in reference to group homes and other situations, so it's not unique to the overdose prevention site.
Mr. Chair, quite often I go through local government acts and through the Community Act, and I see quite often that the CVRD does in fact have some power on quite a few of these things, but just doesn't seem to take it. Is it possible that this could be looked into?
Director Jackson, can you confirm that your council could not prevent this?
No, because it's a provincial emergency. As long as there's a provincial emergency, they can put it wherever they want to put it. And the moment the emergency is over, then it'll have to go. But as long as there's an emergency, they call the shots, and there's nothing we can do.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. That was a very good answer.
Thank you, Mr. Evans, and thank you, Director Jackson, for that. Okay, we can move into closed session. Do we have to have a 5-minute pause to do that? Moved by Director Davis, seconded by Director Marsh. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Well, I try to treat people like I know.
We don't always get that. Every once in a while, somebody will come there with a rant. They'll stand up there and just look down at us and insult the shit out of us. And the their question, then just they just piss me so bad that I don't even listen to the question.
That's what I tell people that are coming here. I said, don't pay somebody